Hello and welcome to Fatboss Bitesize. Today we're going to be taking a bite out of the Halls of Valor 5-man dungeon on Mythic. Now this video is going to assume you know the rules of 5-man dungeons, like not standing in fire and dispelling harmful debuffs, that kind of thing. So we're going to kick straight into it and cover the key trash abilities as well as all of the bosses that you will find in Halls of Valor on Mythic difficulties and below. Now straight from the start, the trash is very deadly. Make sure to move out with the Thunderstrike Lightning Circle debuff, as it will stun anyone within it, and if this hits a tank or the healer, somebody's probably going to die very quickly. Also move away from the Lightning Tornado spawned from the Storm Drakes and watch out for their frontal breath. Now the first boss you will fight is Himdao. Tanks, make sure you face the boss away from melee at all times because of a cleave called Bloodletting Sweep, which will leave a hard-hitting dot on any player's hit. Ranged, try and stand at the sides of the bridge to bait the dancing blades into fairly good locations. As soon as you see the little orange circle on the ground, move out of the way to avoid taking the damage. Healer, be ready to top the group up when the Horn of Valor is cast, and everyone after the Horn of Valor is cast, be ready to move from the incoming drakes that fly across the bridge at either the top, middle, or bottom sections. They will leave behind a large patch of lightning goo, as well as sending out ball lightning which will travel along the bridge. Now after you defeated the first boss, pull the set of trash on the opposite side of where the patrolling ad is. This will allow you to skip him fully, however you will need to pull that trash pack towards the top of the stairs. Just make sure you do not take them too far, as you might aggro the next set. When dealing with these trash packs, make sure to focus down and interrupt the Valor Mystic, as they have a variety of healing spells, one of which will leave a healing rune on the floor. If this does go through, just make sure you move the trash out of it. When tackling the next room, you want to hug the left-hand wall as closely as possible. If done correctly, you can actually skip a large portion of trash going towards the second boss. However, this can be somewhat risky. If done incorrectly, you can easily pull too many mobs and just get overwhelmed. Now when fighting Stormforged Sentinels in this area, make sure to move out of their lightning circles as well as their lightning lines. They also gain a large absorb shield at 30%, which can be dispelled or even spell stolen. On the set of trash going into the second boss's room, pull down the purifier and interrupt him as much as possible, as he hits like a truck. And on the next set of trash, make sure to avoid the blast of light from in front of the aspirant. When fighting the left mob, stand within the bubble during the Eye of the Storm to take less damage, and whilst fighting the right mob, make sure to avoid the balls from Sanctify, as each ball that hits you will deal damage to the entire group. If you're melee DPS and you're not feeling particularly confident in this, feel free just to leave melee range and come back after the Sanctify is ended. The next boss has a name I can't pronounce. Tank, you want to have the boss on either the left or the right hand side of the room, never in the middle. You can tell if the boss is far enough over, as there will only be one beam travelling towards her. However, you do not want to keep the boss on one side of the room for too long, as her damage will ramp up very high. Instead, each time the Shield of Light comes in, you can just use this big knockback to travel quickly to the other side of the room. You also want to use a cooldown at this point because the ability hits very hard. Everyone, when you're on the lightning left side, make sure to stand within the bubble during the Eye of the Storm, and make sure you're spread out for the arcing bolt. When on the holy right side, you want to avoid the Sanctify balls at all costs and move away from the group to drop the expel light. After the boss is dead, backtrack to the entrance and head to the other side. Once again, hug the walls to avoid most of the trash. As soon as you go through the portal, you can actually hug the left wall to avoid the incoming Storm Drake. You then want to have a look on the ground to see which way the wolf tracks are leading on the floor. If it heads left, you want to follow that direction. Just make sure you do not pull too many bears, because they really do hurt your tank. And if they lead right, you can hug the right wall to avoid a set of trash. You will then fight Fenrir for the first time. Casters, stop casting during the Unnerving Howl, as it will interrupt you, and everyone, you want to make sure to spread out with the Ravenous Leap debuff to avoid having multiple bleed stacks applied to the group. Also, always make sure there is at least a couple people in melee to help split the damage from the Claw Frenzy so your tank doesn't get destroyed. Once you get Fenrir to 60% health, he will run off to the back of the room. You then have to follow him, and there's a large amount of wolves in this area, and make sure you do clear them out, but do not pull too many, as they do have an aura which buffs one another's damage. There are mechanics on this next boss which needs a fair amount of space, so do clear a good amount of this trash as well. Now Fenrir has the same abilities as the first time, but with a few differences. Each time he casts Unnerving Howl, 3 wolf ads will appear. You need to kill these guys off as soon as possible, as they have the same aura as the trash. He will also fixate on a player who either needs to run away, and that's why he cleared out the trash, or you can just man up and have your healer spam them, but it does hurt a lot, so it's kind of up to you. Once Fenrir dies, trace your steps back to the portal. You cannot actually use the portal in combat, so don't just pull everything and try and escape through it. You then need to clear the trash in front of the main double doors. You can just pull it all and line a sight around the door to group them up. This can be dangerous, but it is a hell of a lot quicker. After you ascend the magic pathway, you need to kill the 4 mini-bosses. The order we recommend doing is the far left king, then the close right king, and then the last 2. Make sure you keep up on interrupts when fighting any of these kings, as well as killing off any of the ads that are going towards them. After this, you will fight God King Scovald. Have somebody pick up the Aegis and use the extra action button when Ragnarok is cast, and everyone needs to stack within this Aegis, otherwise you will just die. Now, the person channeling the Aegis can still melee attack and cast abilities, however, channeled effects like Tranquility have been known to sometimes cancel the Aegis in the past, so be a little bit careful. Now, when Scovald uses the Aegis, stand behind him to deal damage to him, and when the ads spawn, you want to kite these around and kill them off as soon as possible, just to reduce the amount of fire that's in the area. Now, when these abilities are not happening, make sure you're spread for the Fellblaze Rush, and tank you should be using active mitigation on the Savage Blade cast. Now, afterwards you get the last boss, which is Odin. Everyone needs to move away from the spear landing locations, and make sure you are not hit by any of the orbs that leave them. Also, be ready to use a movement speed increase when Odin drags everyone in and casts Radiant Tempest. You need to leave this giant circle, because if you are hit by it, you will very likely be one-shot. Now, when the Stormforged ad spawns, everyone should swap to it immediately and interrupt it as much as possible. Now, this ad can be stunned, so if you need to leave its range for a long period of time, such as during the Radiant Tempest, you can just stun the ad and then return to it afterwards without it getting any of the casts off. When the spears shatter, avoid all of the orbs, and then go match the rune you have above your head with the one that's on the floor for a huge output and movement speed increase. Get Odin to 80% and you win. Enjoy your loot. Thanks so much for watching, guys. If this video did help you out, then support us by throwing a like on it, or support us further by heading over to our Patreon. See you next time.